Now before we get into the video, I do want to say a massive thank you to today's video sponsors, and once again that is jerseyfifa.com. They really do help keep the content on this channel going, and they even sent me a free shirt which you can see on screen here. And as you can see, I got the new Manchester United home kit, and genuinely the kit really is top quality. I highly recommend their product. So make sure to get in a link in the description down below, and now if you use code JerseyFifa at checkout, you'll get 10% off your order. You get a great football shirt, and you help support the channel, which I really do appreciate massively. Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel. After a few days off with illness, I am back. I'm on the mend, I'm getting there, and I thought I had to cover this game because it was the last Premier League game before the World Cup. Manchester United's 2-1 win over Fulham, which we will of course get into. But before that, like I said, later in the week we are going to be doing a load of World Cup content. So I want you guys to get into the comments down below and let me know what sort of content you want. Do you want my pre-tournament predictions? Do you want tactical previews of certain teams, certain matches? Do you want group previews? Perhaps I could look at certain groups and how I think they'll play out. Let me know what you think. Also, if you aren't following this World Cup, you're boycotting the World Cup, we all know what is going on in Qatar. I also completely understand that as well. That is completely fine. For me, on this channel, I'm going to be focusing on the football. So let me know what you want to see based on the World Cup. But for this, let's talk about Manchester United's win over Fulham, because despite the win, an important 3 points before the World Cup, I don't think Ten Hag will be very pleased with the performance at all, because I don't think United were very good. They did have one man save them late on, but it wasn't a great team performance. Manchester United were not convincing in this game and never really looked in control, and for large periods, Fulham were the better team, but Manchester United always looked the more dangerous. And I guess that's just what happens when you have such a talented squad, that you don't have to perform well, you just can perform in moments, and you are going to create chances. And that is what Manchester United done. But in terms of how Ten Hag wants to play, looking to take control of the ball and kind of play out from the back, dictate a game, take control, dominate territory as well, United didn't do that at all. So let's look at why that was. And some of it comes down to what Fulham are doing, and Fulham actually done it really well. So we know what Manchester United do when they try and build possession. They play in a 2-3 shape, with the fullbacks either side of Casemiro, who is the solo pivot, with Christian Eriksen moving further forward to play alongside Bruno Fernandes. Now, what Fulham done despite starting in a 4-2-3-1 formation was actually defended in more of a 4-4-2 or maybe even a 4-2-2 at times, with Pereira moving forward alongside Vinicius up front, and then the wingers kind of playing like this. And what we can see is the two Fulham forwards are pressing, but they're not really aggressive in the way that they press. So when Martinez has the ball here, Pereira is near him. He's being pressed, but not aggressively. Martinez does have a bit of time on the ball. And it seemed to me like what Fulham were trying to do was bait Manchester United into certain pressing traps. So for me personally, I think the pressing trap, when we look at the shape like this, is actually really clear. And it's going to be Casemiro in the middle of the pitch. Now, Casemiro is an interesting player to use as your pressing trigger, because he is good on the ball. So if you get it wrong, it's going to go badly, because he will expose you. He does have that quality. But what we can see Fulham trying to do is they're making Casemiro look like he's the free option. We can see Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes are higher up the pitch, and initially it does look like Casemiro's got time. It looks like he's got himself into a pocket of space in between the lines, able to receive the ball from Lisandro Martinez or from Victor Lindelof. But what we don't realise initially is that Fulham now have 6 players around him without a Manchester United player in that area. And it meant that the likes of Palhinha, Kearney, Vinicius, Pereira, Wilson, Willian, whoever it was, were then able to quickly pressure Casemiro. And as a result, United really struggled to build possession. And Palhinha in particular, his ball-winning ability was absolutely incredible. I've been going on about this guy for a couple of years now, and no disrespect to Fulham, I'm surprised he went to Fulham in the summer. He was absolutely brilliant. The most tackles from an individual in a Premier League game this season. And he was world class with what he done off the ball. He also had the 5th most touches out of any player on the pitch as well. So he was doing stuff on the ball as well, which we'll perhaps look at in a bit more depth soon. He was brilliant though, really good. And what it meant was that with Fulham playing with this intensity but also this quality off the ball, United really struggled to get the ball moving further forward from here. And in this first phase of possession, but also in this second phase of possession, they really struggled. Manchester United really struggled to take any control on this game, and they couldn't progress the ball. In terms of, I haven't actually got the stats that I can show you on the screen, but if you look at the metrics where we're talking about ball progression, Manchester United don't have any players in the top 4 for progressive carries and progressive passes in this match, which kind of shows the issue that United had. They couldn't get the ball and move it forward through the lines and get it into dangerous areas. As a result of this lack of time on the ball, United eventually sort of just resorted to playing the ball long, and I get why, because sometimes it can work, but it didn't really work in this game. Sometimes it'd be Casemiro if he was pressed by Palhinha, he'd look to hook a quick ball over the top, and sometimes it would be Lisandro Martinez, who had a bit more time on the ball because of the forward sitting off, looking to play long passes over the top. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, because I thought that Manchester United done this a lot, looking to hit that early ball over the top for Martial to run onto, occasionally Elanga, also Marcus Rashford. What do you think of that method? Because it's one of those ones where if United complete 3 of those passes and score 2 goals from it, you say that is a great game plan. They drew Fulham onto them and then hit the ball over the top, scored some goals, great stuff, they done really well. But because in this game the passing wasn't quite accurate enough, Lisandro Martinez, Lindelof, Casemiro weren't quite accurate enough with their passing, we kind of look at it and go, oh, they're really sloppy on the ball and they just resorted to long ball. It was a bad idea. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts, because just because the execution wasn't right, it doesn't mean the plan was wrong. So I'd like to know if you think that was the right plan or not. Because there were a couple of times where Martial just looked like getting in behind, he just looked like he was about to expose them. So perhaps it was the right plan, it was just a failed execution, in which case Ten Hag can't really take any criticism for that. That's just unlucky from the players, you know. These are hard passes to hit. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm really interested to hear your views. But in general, with Fulham defending and pressing really well, and Manchester United kind of rushing it a bit at times, they really had nothing on the ball. What United really were crying out for in this game was someone to take just a third touch. Take the extra touch, play the extra pass. Just slow it down a little bit. Instead it became very hectic with Manchester United just kind of pinging balls forward, trying difficult passes through the lines. Bruno Fernandes guilty of that, Christian Eriksen guilty of that. Not very good for Manchester United in possession, and it also wasn't great off the ball either. So in terms of Manchester United's game plan off the ball, we had Casemiro matching up with Pereira in midfield, Eriksen on Palhinha, who would often drop deeper, which meant Eriksen often ended up being the highest pressing midfielder, and Bruno Fernandes on Kearney, who pushed a little bit forward, which dragged Bruno Fernandes back. And I found that quite an interesting way for Manchester United to do it, with Bruno Fernandes and Eriksen that way round. Normally Bruno Fernandes is the highest pressing midfielder. So to pair him up with Kearney didn't make too much sense in my opinion, because Palhinha was always going to be the one dropping deeper. I'm not saying it's a massive tactical flaw or a massive problem, just an interesting little observation, because it meant that Bruno Fernandes, off the ball, in this phase of possession, was often deeper with Casemiro, with Eriksen higher, so just kind of an interesting thing to point out. Again, let me know what you think of it. But in general, the big issue for United was that they just didn't come with the intensity that Fulham did. And the pressing shape was okay. We kind of had Rashford and Elanga cutting this pass kind of half between the centre-back, half between the full-back, which is fine. Martial doing a decent job of cutting passing angles and forcing people certain ways, but there was just the intensity weren't there. I thought the structure was okay, the system was okay, the setup was okay. I just don't think the players had the intensity. Now, why is that? Because it's happened a few too many times recently, something that Ten Hag badly needs to sort out after the World Cup. As a result, it meant that Fulham progressed the ball really easily. And I was talking about ball progression stats earlier. I said that Manchester United didn't have a player in the top 4 for ball progression, whether that be carries or passes. Fulham did, and it was every single one of that back 4, and that probably just kind of really captures how easily Fulham progressed the ball forward. It was far too easy to kind of draw Elanga into somewhere like this, and then work the pass out to Robinson, who was then able to carry the ball forward, and then Fulham are forward. Fulham are through, they can easily progress the ball further up the pitch. Having moved the ball forward quite easily, I thought Fulham were really brave with the way they looked to play, with the fullbacks pushing high really early on. And what it's done for large periods of the game was allowed Fulham to take control, because it forced Manchester United further back, because they can't leave those fullbacks unmarked. So it kind of made United drop deeper and deeper and deeper, and allowed Fulham to take control. Now, at the same time, on the other side of that coin, it did cause problems for Fulham, and the first goal actually came from this for Manchester United. It came from Fulham kind of having this 2-2 shape here. The fullback's too high, Fulham lost the ball, Martial done some good false 9 work, and Manchester United got in behind, got out of the defence. We're not going to look at the goal, because we're breaking things down tactically more today, but this was a positive for Fulham. Getting the fullbacks high, it did cause problems for Manchester United, but at the same time, when United are so good in transition with the likes of Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, Martial, Elanga, Christian Eriksen, it did cause problems for Fulham as well. So a bit of tactical cat and mouse a little bit. Fulham push players forward and ask Manchester United the question, are you going to follow them? And at times United do, they follow them deeper, but at times they don't, they leave players higher, and it allows United to get in behind on the counter-attack and score goals. But also, at the same time, it creates situations where Fulham can get forward. And when they were looking to get forward, the game plan looked quite simple to me. Attack down this side of the pitch. Manchester United's right, because Malacia is not a right back. We've seen him play there 1 or 2 times, kind of cameo appearances from the bench in the Europa League. He looked really uncomfortable. I'm not going to sit here and criticise him because this isn't his position. You play a player out of position is always going to be difficult. I'm also not going to criticise Erik ten Hag because I've seen people saying Lindelof should have played here with Maguire in the middle. That would have gone awfully. Because Manchester United's transition defence was so bad, because Fulham could progress the ball so easily, having a centre-back at full-back would have been a nightmare. An absolute nightmare. So I do think Ten Hag got it right, and Malacia just about held his own. He just about done enough and kind of got those last-ditch tackles in just, but it weren't a great performance from him. He was caught out a little bit on a few occasions. I don't think Alanga offered him quite enough defensive protection. Kind of expect a bit more from Alanga. But yeah, Fulham caused problems for Manchester United. They got into good areas. They put good crosses into the box. They've done the same down the other side as well with Andreas Pereira, who was brilliant. I hadn't seen him play this well since every pre-season. He was really good in this game, and again, it was trying to create overloads in these wide areas to then get crosses into the box. We know that defending crosses isn't Manchester United's strength necessarily. There's no Maguire back here. There's no Varane back here. De Gea isn't a dominating goalkeeper in that sense. Fulham done a really good job of getting into these wide channels. In terms of ball progression down the centre, they weren't really too bothered about it. But they knew that they could get the ball in these areas from Palhinha, get it wide into the likes of Pereira, the likes of Willian, get crosses into the box. On another day, I think United would have had more trouble. Because, unfortunately for Fulham, Vinicius isn't Mitrovic. Vinicius is decent, he's a good threat in the box. He isn't Mitrovic though. Mitrovic is a different beast entirely, and Manchester United maybe got away with one a little bit here. Because, like I said right at the start of the video, United won. Ten Hag will not be pleased with this performance. It was not very good at all. But fortunately, they have this guy. Alejandro Garnacho. Now, I was going to do a video on the cup game against Aston Villa in midweek, where Garnacho came on and got 2 really, really nice assists. I didn't do the video because I was ill, but one thing I wanted to point out in that video was that let's not get too excited about him. Let's kind of let him nurture and develop. Let's not put too much pressure on him. It's going to be quite hard not to get too excited about this guy now, because he is brilliant. The pure technical ability that this guy has is incredible, and what I like about him is he is still young. He's very, very raw, which means he plays without fear. He's kind of got that ignorance to the pressures of the football world. He just gets the football and does what he wants to do with the football, and that is attack defenders. And he completely changed what Manchester United were doing. He just gave them a completely different threat. And it shows the trust that Erik ten Hag has in him to bring Martial off, to put Rashford up front and get Garnacho on the left wing. It happened at a stage in the game where Fulham were taking control a little bit. Garnacho came on and flipped it on its head, and he looked really, really good. Now, I'm glad he isn't going to the World Cup. People might argue that he deserves a spot, potentially. Maybe it would have been good to get the experience. But I actually think for his development and for perhaps Ten Hag's sake, it might be easier to kind of keep quiet on Garnacho now, let him have this month training with the players that are back home. He doesn't need the World Cup, he doesn't need that scrutiny, he doesn't need that pressure. Just let him develop. Alright, don't get on him, he's going to have bad performances. That's not the end of the world, okay? Just let this guy develop, because he looks really good. And he won Manchester United a huge 3 points. This was not a good performance at all as a team, but they kind of stuck in there, they showed their grit. I don't think this was a win they would have got in the past seasons. It was a really important one going into the World Cup. A big, big 3 points for Manchester United. A good performance? Absolutely not, but a good 3 points. And yeah, that's all I've got to say on it. So, that's it. We are done with the Premier League and the club football content for the next month or so now. Now, I dare say during the World Cup I will chip in and look at a few different Manchester United players that are playing well at the World Cup, a few different World Cup players that United might want to target in January, things like that. But in general, we are now going on to the World Cup content, so let me know what you want to see. Thank you guys for watching, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and as always, I will see you in the next one.